everybody. Welcome back to the Fitness Business Podcast. Jordan here. Really excited to share with you guys today some simple math that'll create massive clarity in understanding what you need to do in your business to grow it and at what point will your business get stuck. So I'm going to share this framework, this formula with you. And if you guys just stick with me in this episode, understanding just this math will literally unlock the secrets to infinitely scaling your business, or at least understanding why the business isn't scaling. So I first discovered this when we were actually working with Alex and Hormozi. We were one of their early acquisition partners, and we were asking Layla the question, hey, did you ever expect Gym Launch to grow as big as it did? And she said, actually, yeah, because I just knew the math. And I thought that was super interesting. We asked her to unpack, and what we had discovered was they understood this formula. So they knew that Gym Launch would grow up to $30 million a year as long as they just kept going based on the metrics that I'm going to share with you today. So what I'm going to challenge you to do is to follow along. If you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see the visuals. If not, you can just kind of visualize and write these notes down write these notes down as we move along. It should be relatively easy to follow. And if you're listening to the podcast, you can always check out the YouTube, which should get published usually within like a week or so after these episodes air. So if you can just learn to understand your numbers, then scaling a business really can just come down to math. Math can reveal what we need to do to scale, and it often allows us to understand how much more important retention is than acquisition. Acquiring customers is extremely hard. It's expensive. It adds a lot of strain to the business. We should want to build a lean business that makes more money with fewer clients, because this is how you can build a business that creates the best results, into which your clients will bring you clients. Okay. So let's jump in. I'm going to share my screen here and you guys can watch me draw these figures on. So the first thing we have to understand, the ultimate formula we're trying to figure out here is called your cost of acquisition, or CAC, and LTGP. So lifetime gross profit. It's a ratio. So it's basically how much does it cost you to acquire a customer as a ratio of how much gross profit you make on that customer. So let's just go ahead and run through what we need to do this. So in order to calculate this, we first have to know, one, what our churn is. Okay. So first is churn. Next is LTV. Then after that, we need to understand what our gross profit is. Gross profit. Okay. So let's break each of these things down. So when it comes to churn, what churn means, it's essentially a measure of health of your business in terms of adding, like how many customers are you losing versus how many customers you're adding, and is the business growing? Are you adding more customers than you're losing, more or less, right? So the simple formula is, it's really easy. You just need to know the number of clients that left over a period. You usually want to track this monthly, and you divide that by the starting number of active clients in that next month. Okay, that's your churn percentage. So for example, let's say that I had 12 clients offboarded, and that could be, they canceled their contracts, they refunded, maybe like 3 or 4 of those were cancels. Maybe a few of those were people who just, came to the end of their road and maybe graduated, or people that you tried to pitch to continue and they said no. Whatever the case, they offboarded and left the company. And let's say at the beginning of the month, you had, let's say 75 active clients. So in this scenario, you just take 12 divided by 75, and that would be a 16% churn. That's one example. Okay, so we know our churn now, and our goal is to always stay under 10%. That's usually a good measure of success, especially for like an online fitness business, okay? Because anything above 10% just might let you know that there's a problem, and I'll show you how impactful churn is and how the difference between 10 and 11 or 10 and 12% could be huge amounts of numbers, okay? So the next thing we have to understand is what our LTV is, lifetime value. This is how much a customer spends with you over the course of being a customer. So the easiest way to figure this out is you first want to just know what your revenue was for a period, total cash collected, divided by the number of active clients over that period. Okay, that gives you your average customer value. That's the first number we need to try to identify. So what's the average amount monthly that a client spends with you? So let's say, for example, we have a $20,000 a month business, and let's say we currently have 70 active clients. We would take 20,000 divided by 70. So on average, our average customer value is $285. $285. Cool. Okay, so now that we have that 285 number, now we can calculate LTV, because we have our churn percentage, and we have our average customer value. So LTV is just simply average customer value divided by churn. So let's say that our average customer value is, I think we said 285. We would divide that by churn, which we calculated at 16%. So I would take 285 times 0.16. So that would mean that my average LTV is $1,781. That's my LTV. So I would track this monthly and run like a total, so you know what your like yearly average is. So what do we do next? Well, now that we have these numbers, we can start to play around with some formulas and figure out what we need to do to grow the business. So let's look at a spreadsheet here and run some figures. So let's say our churn rate, hypothetically, let's just say it's 12%. Now let's say we're adding 10 new customers per month to our business. Let's say our average monthly revenue is $27,000. And let's say that on average, we have 57 monthly clients, or that's like the snapshot of this month that we're looking at. So that means our average monthly value per client is $473, because we take 27,000, the total cash, divided by 57. So that means our lifetime value is 3,947, because we take average monthly value and we divide that by our churn. So what that means is if we just keep going, okay, we'll grow this business to $39,473. That's the point though, in which the business will stick. And to unstick it, we either need to reduce churn, we either need to increase sales velocity, or we need to increase average monthly value. So that's where we get to ask these questions to figure out, okay, like what are the levers that we want to pull to grow the business? Now, let's say we reduce churn down to just 10%. If we reduce churn from 12 to 10%, automatically that brings the business cap rate to $47,000. Now, let's say we can increase pricing, okay? Like we increase pricing, let's say we increase prices, either, a price raise, right? And that means that we can make the same amount of money with 45 active clients, then that means now we can grow the business to 60,000 before we cap out. Okay. Now let's say we increase our sales velocity from 10 to 15. Now we're at 90,000 a month before we cap out. Okay. So this will allow you to understand what are the biggest levers to pull. So let's say our goal is to get to 100,000 a month. Okay. 12% turn. We're signing 10 clients a month. If we don't change anything else and we just try to get to 100,000 a month by signing new clients or increasing sales velocity, we would need to go from 10 new clients a month to 25. And the reason I would suggest that that's not the right strategy is because there's a lot of operational complexity and there's a lot of costs that come with adding that many more clients. So let's say we just go from like 10 to 15 new clients, okay? And then we bring our churn from 12 to 10%. Then let's say we increase our prices just by like 10%. We can now go from $27,000 a month to $90,000 a month by only signing 5 additional clients because we fixed our retention problem. We brought churn from 12 to 10%. We increased sales velocity from 10 to 15, and we increased our average monthly value to $600 a month per client, okay? From where it was, I think we were at like $473. So this is where pricing becomes really important too. Like if you have an online health and fitness coaching business, I would suggest no matter what you do, try to make sure your average client value is at least $600. And then that would give you at 10% churn, a $6,000 LTV. So how do we tie all this together? Well, what we want to do is figure out what our LTV and lifetime gross profit to CAC ratio is. So lifetime gross profit, all that means is the percentage or basically everything that you spend to fulfill your product and service. So this could be what you pay coaches, welcome gifts, operational expenses, things like that, right? So let's say you're at an 87% gross profit margin. So we would just take our LTV, which in this case, let's say that's $6,000, and we would multiply that by 0.87. 6,000 times 0.87. So that's 5,220. So our lifetime gross profit per customer is 5,220. That's gross profit. Okay, let's figure out our actual profit, how much we actually make per customer acquired. So the next thing we need to do is figure out what our cost to acquire is. So that would be your ad spend and any marketing and sales labor divided by number of clients closed over a period. Let's say you're spending $2,000 a month on ads, and let's say you pay out in a month $3,000 in marketing labor. You have a VA that helps with content. You have an appointment setter and whatever else, right? So like let's say you have $5,000 in acquisition costs and you're signing 15 clients a month. So you take 5,000 divided by 15, you're at $333 in acquisition, 333. Okay, so all we do is now ask ourselves, for every $333 I spend, I make 5,220. So what's that ratio? So you would just take 333 divided by 5,220. And let's see what that number is. 5,220 divided by 333. So we're at a 15 to 1. Listen, if you're over a 3 or 4 to 1 with your CAC to lifetime gross profit ratio, that just means you need to spend more to acquire customers. Like if you have a 7 to 1, 8 to 1, 9 to 1, 10 to 1, that means that if you want to scale the business, you need to just spend more, but you can only spend more up to the point that you're going to cap out. So in this scenario, like I can't spend my way past 90,000 a month. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So again, simple formula, simple math that you can use to understand where your business is going to get stuck, what you need to do in terms of inputs, throughputs, where to focus. And the point here, guys, is that it's so much easier to solve retention than it is to try to just add more customers to a business. It's cheaper, it's easier, it's gonna just make your life simple in more ways than one. So instead of just thinking, okay, how many more clients do I need to add this month? You should ask yourself, how many clients do I need to add to end up hitting my goal based on my retention, my churn, and my LTV? Okay. So with that, guys, hopefully you found some use in this. I know this was pretty math heavy, but if you're a nerd like me, I'm sure you enjoyed this. And with that, I'll see you